Welcome everyone to Sunday service. So great seeing everyone's faces. Self-awareness isn't knowing yourself. It's knowing how others see you. And in order to know how others see you, you have to be able to put yourself in other people's shoes. You know, when you watch Dr. Phil and people make complete fool out of themselves, right? These guests come on and the girl in Dr. Phil that's like, catch me outside. These people are completely making a fool of themselves. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's so like, aren't they embarrassed, blah, blah, blah. But they have no idea how other people see them. 95% of people in the world think they know themselves, think that they are self-aware. But only 80 to 85% of people, or only 10 to 15% of people are actually self-aware. That means 80 to 85% of us in the world are walking around just like that Catch Me Outside girl, thinking like, oh, I know myself, not understanding how stupid we look to other people. Once you get more familiar with how other people see you, putting yourself in other people's shoes and how they see you, that's how you increase your self-awareness. This is what practicing putting yourself in another person's shoes does to your content. First of all, number one, it makes you self-aware. You become more self-aware. And number two, you can make people say, I never thought of it that way. The thing that makes me say, oh, I never thought of it that way is because I've been doing something one way until I saw from a completely different perspective. And I'm like, oh my gosh, holy shit. I wasn't aware of that angle at all. I never thought of it that way, right? And one of the ways you can do it is by putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. How do you practice putting yourself in other people's shoes? 2 steps. Number one, you pay attention to 5-second moments and then find a similar moment where you were on the other side. I'll give you some examples. Number one, here's a 5-second moment. This was when I was in college. I had a boss who was like overly nice to me. Like he was just so accommodating and he was like being overly nice because I was actually a good employee. I was good at my job. I used to sell laptops for them and I sold more laptops than anyone. But it was just a part-time job and I didn't want to really commit myself to that job. But since he was like overly nice to me, I felt like so pressured. I felt like, oh, what do you want? I'm not going to work for you full time. I felt like he had an agenda, he had a motive, but I wasn't quite sure what it was, right? But I felt the pressure because he was being so nice to me. He was keep asking me like, oh, son, are you okay? Like he would keep giving me bonus and all of that things, right? And I was like, okay. And I actually kind of like kept a distance from him because I didn't want to send the wrong idea that I'm going to like work for him full time or something like that. During that moment, I was thinking like, what happened in my brain was, oh shit. I remember when I was younger, well, I was still young then. Like when I first started dating, when I first started like getting interested in girls, like I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to buy them flowers and be nice to them and be like, call them and all of these things, right? And that never worked. The more nicer I was to them, the more they distanced me. So I'm like, holy shit, like, is this what it feels like? Like, is this what I was doing? And that kind of like connected the dots in my head where I was able to see the other side. So that's a similar moment where I was doing what my boss was doing to me to somebody else. You see what I mean? One example of putting yourself in another person's shoes. So for this week's assignment, Encircle, go to Welcome, Micro Storytelling 101. And then I uploaded the PDF of the assignment for week 6 there. So definitely go download that, check it out. The lesson of the stories that you come up with this week is not going to be like, oh, I learned that I shouldn't judge others. That's not the lesson. I learned that, oh, I should be more aware of putting myself in another person's shoes. That's not the lesson. That's the universal lesson that we're trying to learn as a group. But that's not the lesson of the story. The lessons are more specific. And the reason why is because once you start doing that, and maybe you can do this as part of the exercise, like whatever stories you come up with, try to see if you have a story like that within your work, within your business, or with your client or something like that. Because you might learn something new like that might be, oh, I never thought of it that way. I want to get that crystal clear. We're not coming up with business stories here. We're practicing the memories. We're practicing the skills that's going to help us come up with business stories later on. But we're not actually coming up with business stories at the moment. So Night Owl Nation only works because of community support. So if you're an OG member, you've been here for a while, please support newer members who needs help in your group. And if you're a newer member, don't hesitate, don't be shy to ask for help because that's what we do here. So this quote is related to kind of, judgment, seeing things from other people's perspective, like letting go of our ego, all of that. So this is a quote by Marcus Aurelius. Begin each day by telling yourself, today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. All of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil. But for my part, I have long perceived the nature of good and its nobility, the nature of evil and its meanness, and also the nature of culprit himself, who is my brother, not in the physical sense, but as fellow creature similarly endowed with reason and share of the divine. Therefore, none of those things can injure me. For nobody can implicate me in what is degrading. Neither can I be angry with my brother or fall foul of him. For he and I were born to work together. Like a man's two hands, feet, or eyelids, or the upper and lower rows of his teeth. To obstruct each other is against nature's law. And what is irritation or aversion but a form of obstruction? Thank you everyone for coming to Sunday service. Remember, however this week goes, just remember to come back next week. I'll see you all next week. And have a great week. Bye everyone.
Bye.
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 Thank you,
Bye.
Sun.
Thank you, Sun. Thank you, Gigi.
Bye. Amazing.
Bye.
Bye. So good to see you all. Bye,
Take care.
Bella. Bye, Alba. Bye,
Going
Christina.
back to Tony Robbins.
Say aye.
Bye.